What's up, beautiful souls? It's Candy, your spiritual bestie. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with who I am, I'm an intuitive tarot reader, an empath, a healer, and spiritual advisor. And I specialize in delivering messages from spirit to the collective. I typically like to incorporate a little bit of astro in my tarot readings or in my oracle card readings. And if you want to know more about me, go to my website, thespiritualbestie.com, where you can check out my shop, my blog, and you can work with me if you're interested. Now, let's get into what I'm talking about today. The Mercury squares Mars transit, right? We're going to talk about how this affects your sun, moon, and rising, because all three are really important. If you're unfamiliar with your birth chart, you've never pulled up a birth chart, I'm going to link some information down below, and you can go there, you can put in your birth date, your birth time, and pull up your birth chart. That's going to be where all the planets were at the time of your birth. And as I do more of these videos, I'll be breaking down different information on understanding astrology better and providing you guys with more resources. But today, I want to talk about this Mercury square Mars transit. It's occurring right now until March 30th. And this morning, while I was doing my devotions and in meditation, I was asking for guidance on what it was that I was supposed to talk about. So my friend and I, we did our little morning ritual where we get together, we do some reading of, maybe from some book that we're checking out, or we have these discussions. We may participate in a meditation together, but we just come together to support each other in our own spiritual journeys. And this morning, when I asked, and we got on for our morning ritual, we started to talk about peace. And I remember seeing that Mercury is going to be squaring Mars until the end of the month. And I was like, that's it. Thank you, Spirit. And the message came so beautifully together for me this morning that I'm so excited to share this information and to do these readings with you guys. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to break down this particular transit. What is a square? What does Mercury and Mars squaring mean? And then I'm going to start going into the signs. So Mercury, when we think about, well, let's first break down a square. A square in astrology is conflict. It can bring about confusion. It can bring about tension. It is, think of a square off. Think of two energies or two people squaring off. Two people with really strong opinions squaring off. They don't necessarily agree due to this square. So it's kind of like having some conflict and tension where both energies are trying to basically have their voices heard, right? And that causes a conflict and it can cause some confusion. When we think about a square, we can think about frustrations coming to light. We can also think about struggles, demands, tension, like I said. And when I think of these type of energies, what I think about is spirit shifting us into a place of reflection, drawing our attention to something, or shifting us into a place of elevation and growth. So don't look at tension and even confusion or stress as a negative. Look at it as a delivery. It's a delivery of a message. What is Spirit trying to say to you with this energy? If you're triggered, that means that something is calling for your attention. Something is more than likely calling to be healed. And I want to bring that energy forward so that you can understand it, so that you can be aware of it. And as we learn more about our astrological birth charts, it helps us to understand ourselves. It helps us to understand our struggles, our conflicts, our strengths, our challenges, and it helps us to then look at ourselves differently, in a different light, as whole individuals with a modality of different personality traits and characteristics. And as we go through these different transits, if we are in tune, we can go through these transits without much problem. We can understand that when there is tension, when there is conflict, it's calling for our attention. It's calling for maybe something to be healed or something to shift or change. So I encourage you guys to look at squares and any other conflicting type of energy in that light. Let's start with my Aries today. Aries. This transit is occurring Mercury square Mars, in your 11th and your 5th house. So what does that mean? Again, Mercury is the place of communication, okay? It is our words, our thoughts, how we analyze things, how we receive information, how we give information. It's about how we learn things. It's about our energy even. When we go into a room and it is chaotic energy, we pick that up and we say like, okay, this isn't really for me, you know, or something is off here. That is Mercury energy at play, okay? When we go in a place and the energy is beautiful and we feel good about ourselves and we're feeling the love and we're feeling the warmth and we're feeling embraced and we're feeling that joy and that peace in these certain places, that is Mercury communicating with you. So remember, energy is communication. Energy and Mercury go hand in hand. They work together. It is a part of that energy. So keep that in mind, okay? Mercury is about our thoughts and ideas and how we perceive things, how we interpret things, okay? And some of that has to do with how we were raised. Some of that has to do with how what we were taught as kids. Now, when we think about Mars, let's think about Mars as action. Mars is passion. It's fire. It is the fight, in flight or fight, okay? It is masculine energy. It is dominating energy. It is our willpower. It is our motor. It is the battery in our back. When we are going after our dreams, or we are in a place of action and we're moving forward and we're making progress, that is Mars at play. That is Mars at work in our lives. So for my Aries, this is occurring in your 11th house of friendships, groups, future. It's also happening in your 5th house of passion, creativity, children, entertainment, all of that. So very, very Martian energy, of course, because we're going to see that energy regardless with Aries because Mars rules Aries. Okay, so 11th house, let's talk about friendships or groups or the future conflicting with passion, creativity, pleasure, or entertainment. So when I think of this transit, what I'm feeling is that there may be some things that you need to reevaluate within these sectors. Are these things conflicting? Is your ability to experience pleasure or creativity being hemmed down by the groups that you're in, or even friendships that you're carrying? Sometimes within friendships, you know, we experience a place of crossroads, and it's like, do we go right together? Do we go left together? Do we go forward together? We go our separate ways. And sometimes friendships just need a little additional love and communication. So I encourage you to communicate your needs within your friendship, Aries, and communicate your needs and remember why you became friends. How did you guys come together in the first place? The question right now for you guys might be, where do we go from here? How can we reignite the spark that lit the flame of our friendship? And let's be honest, going through a friendship breakup or tension within our friendships can be just as difficult, if not worse, as difficulty and tension within our romantic relationships. I know I've had friendship breakups that have hurt me to my core, and I've cried over those longer than I cried over any guy. So I just want to encourage you guys to think about what that means. Mercury square Mars, conflicting communication within friendships, or communication in the place of our creativity or pleasure. How is that conflicting with action? Are we saying one thing to our friends and doing something else that's not in support of that friendship? Your first card that comes up is Love Begins. Listen, friendships are the most beautiful things that we can experience in this lifetime. It is a love that is like no other. You know, you experience and if you're blessed enough to experience love within a friendship, within a romantic situation, if you're blessed enough to experience friendship in your relationship, then you understand how beautiful that type of thing can be. But your next card is obstacles and challenges. So again, Why did we connect to begin with? Why did we decide to come together? What brought us together as friends? Or what brought me to this group that I used to be so passionate about, but now I'm finding a hard time fitting in, or feeling like I'm accepted here, or feeling like I'm not outgrowing this situation. And sometimes we do outgrow situations. Sometimes we do outgrow relationships, friendships, groups, and that's okay. Or sometimes things just get a little stagnant and we take our time away, or we take some time apart and a little less communication so that we can work on ourselves and that individual can work on themselves. But obstacles and challenges come within every relationship, friendships, romantic relationships. And the last card that Spirit sends is surrender. It's surrender. Surrender to wherever you are right now. And I look at these transits. The best way to work our way through these type of energy, these squaring, conflicting energies, is to swim with the tide and not against the current. When we understand how to swim with the tide and not against the current, it makes these transits so much easier for us. It's like when we understand that there is something greater at play and it's not just what we see on the surface, we tend to just float right through these energies. And not saying that there's no conflict and there's no problems. Let me tell you, I'll be the first to say that despite my knowledge and my growth that I've experienced, which has been beautiful, I don't know it all. And I'm not perfect. And although I try to look at my life from a higher consciousness with the perspective of operating in relationship with and partnership with Spirit, I still experience challenges, and I still have days where I have to check myself. That is that communication, that self-talk, that inner conversation. It's like bring yourself back to reality, ground yourself, and really ask yourself, what is the greater purpose behind this situation? Surrender. I can release my need to control. You know, one of the things that I read about this morning was peace. And peace is achieved through our thoughts, through the things that we say, and through our action. So in order to achieve and maintain a state of peace, we have to know how to ground ourselves in those moments and know that sometimes we have to work a little bit harder to get there. Okay, so that is my message for my Aries. I'm going to move over to my Tauruses. Tauruses, Mercury square Mars is occurring until March 30th, and it's affecting your 10th and your 4th house. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but let's talk about what Mercury square Mars even means. A square is tension. It's an obstacle. It is a place that can create some frustration, some difficulty, some challenges. But the way that I like to look at these things is that Spirit is calling us to either pay attention to something, to elevate past something. You know, Spirit may be calling us to a higher level of awareness or consciousness, and also Spirit sometimes is shifting things so that we can grow. So instead of looking at challenges and obstacles as a negative thing, start to look at it as, what is the message that Spirit is trying to get to me? What is Spirit trying to say to me in this moment? So with Mercury square Mars, we may experience some tension in the realms of communication. Mercury brings the energy of communication. Mercury is literally about energy, because when we go into a room, we go in somewhere, we are tapping into energy. When the vibe does not feel right, or when the vibe feels beautiful, we are tapping in and communicating through energy. So with Mercury, it's our words, it's our thoughts, it's how we analyze things, how we see things, how we perceive things. Okay, it is our awareness. And then when we talk about Mars, we think of desire, we think of passion, we think of the fight and fight or flight, we think of aggression, we think of action, doing and moving forward. You know, the motor is the battery in our back, as I said earlier. So Mercury is also, Mars is also like our strength. It's our dominance as well. It is masculine energy. It's fathering energy. It's very present in Mars. So keep that in mind. Let me pull these cards if I can stop them from falling all over the place, honey. Let's pull the cards. So again, for my Tauruses, this is in your 10th house, the house of your careers, the house of your achievement, responsibilities, and that energy is conflicting with your 4th house, your roots, comfort, self-care. So maybe for my Tauruses right now, you guys might be in a place where you are really questioning whether or not you need to continue in a certain career path, or you may be asking yourself, have I done enough? What can I do to advance myself? Or are these responsibilities or this job or this career that I have conflicting with my ability to care for myself, my ability to practice proper self-care, my level of comfort? Is it out of my level of comfort? Am I being pushed out of my comfort zone? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we have to ask ourselves, where am I? What am I doing here? What is the purpose? And how do I move myself forward? How do I continue to forward momentum? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're all trying to do, right? We're trying to continue the momentum forward. Okay, let's talk about it. Your first card, actually, let me pull one more card for you guys, for my Tauruses. Okay, I love it. I love it. The first card is positive movement forward. Positive movement forward. If you look at this transit and you take this energy and you really alchemize it, right? You really use your intuition, your insight, your experience, your knowledge, and your inner wisdom, you are going to move positively forward. But you just need to get that insight from spirit. You need to really sit down and ask yourself some real questions and give yourself some serious answers. I love the fact that sacral chakra energy came up, because that is our space of creativity. Okay, that is the space where our sexual energy lies. That is the space where we tap into our work, as for those of us that are astrologers or healers or therapists, or doing any type of spiritual work. Like I talked about this in my last live on Instagram. I talked about how we needed to make sure that as spiritual healers, we were doing the work to really tap into that sacral chakra energy to replenish it, okay? And not just pouring, emptying our cup and leaving nothing for ourselves. And sometimes our careers can do that. Sometimes we can find ourselves pouring, giving, doing, and not taking a break. That is when burnout occurs, okay? When we don't allow ourselves an opportunity to rest. So maybe for you at this time, you know, you're having some conflicting energy with your career and how it pertains to your self-care, or how it conflicts with your self-care, or how it's interfering with your self-care. But the 4th house is also about our roots, and immediately I think root chakra energy. Sometimes we stay in these career paths, or we stay on these jobs, and we're not even satisfied, we're not content, we don't feel fulfilled in any way, we're unhappy, we're overworked and underpaid, and yet we still stay there because our fear of our financial stability, our sense of security and comfort is threatened by the idea of us leaving a job that we hate. I encourage you to choose purpose today. Choose purpose over your paycheck, because when you operate within your purpose, yes, it may take some time. You may have to put in some time, but when you operate within your purpose, everything else falls into place. And I love the fact that the purpose card came up. Purpose, it says, I know what I'm here to do. Taurus, this is an opportunity during this transit for you to really get real with yourself about what it is that you're here to do. What is your purpose? And if that is out of alignment with your current career, it's time to maybe consider a change. Good luck, Taurus. I'm going to move on to my Geminis. Gemini, this Mercury square Mars transit is occurring in your 9th and your 3rd house until March 30th. So what does that mean? A square can bring about conflict, confusion, even opposition, maybe sometimes feel a little imbalanced, some frustration. That energy can be really demanding when we see a square, okay? It's like, think of squaring off, okay? Think of two energies or two people squaring off. They both are very opinionated. They have a point to prove, and neither one of them is trying to not be heard, okay? So When we think of Mercury, that is our communication. I know of a lot of you hear about the Mercury retrograde. Even if you're not familiar with astrology in any other way, I know you've heard of Mercury retrograde if you've been around long enough, right? But let's break down Mercury. It's communication. It's our thoughts. It's how we analyze things. It's how we send and receive information. Okay. It is relative to our throat chakras. Okay. It is also our energy in general. Energy is communicative. Okay. Our energy communicates. Every time that we step in a door, every time we step in a group, every time we go somewhere, we are communicating through energy. And some of us are a little bit more receptive and sensitive to those things. I'm an empath, so I'm very sensitive to energies. I can pick up a vibe in a heartbeat. But, you know, for those of us that aren't, getting a little more still and a little more quiet and paying attention to our own energy helps us to develop that gift a little bit more, because we all have the gift of empathy. We can all feel things and sense things. Some of us just sense it stronger than others. And even for those of you that may be strongly empathic, you know, making sure that you are practicing proper self-care will really help with kind of turning down the dial a little bit if you are super empathic and it's overwhelming for you. But getting back to how this aspect and how this transit is affecting you, we're looking at Gemini's effect in the 9th house, which is higher education. It's travel, it's risk, it's adventure, it's fun, it's getting out and going. You know, it's not staying stagnant in one place. Okay. And then the 3rd house is siblings, social media, research, and dating. Those are kind of like my top hitters when I think of 3rd house energy. When we think of Mars, we think of action, we think of desire, we think of fire, we think of passion, we think of the fight or flight, right? We think about that energy, masculine energy, fathering energy, all of that. The battery in our back is all a part of Mars energy. Okay, it's action, it's movement. Mars does not like being still. Mars does not like sitting still. Mars likes to get up and go for what you know. That is the type of energy that we think about when we think about Mars, right? So let me get this 3rd card out for you guys, and we're going to talk about the message that Spirit has for you when it comes to conflicting higher education or travel or adventure and siblings or social media or research or dating. And maybe for you, you know, there are some things that you would like to do, some ideas or thoughts that you have that in the realm of travel or adventure or risk that you just want to take, and maybe that energy is impeding or conflicting with your dating life or with even your siblings. You know, maybe y'all are really close and y'all usually do a lot of things together, and maybe you're wanting to do some things on your own, right? Maybe you're wanting to go at it alone for a little bit and just experience life on your own terms. You may experience some conflicting energy between these two houses, your 9th house and your 3rd house. So let's look at the cards. The first card that came up is sacral chakra energy. That is the house of our creativity. It's the energy place of our passions, of our sexual drive, our sexual energy. It's creativity. It's play. When we think of siblings, I think of, you know, going back to childhood, playing together. A lot of times that creativity was sparked during our childhood. We began to realize the things that we were good at, and not necessarily all of the things that we're good at, because that develops as we get older and have more experiences, but just some of the things that we like what do I want to be when I grow up? It was the biggest question when we were kids, right? So all of those things are stirred up within our sacral chakra. You guys had only chakra cards today, and this deck is full of so much more, but what came up today is sacral chakra energy and heart chakra. When I think of healing, when I think of family work, when I think of breaking barriers and conflict, a lot of times siblings are very close to that, very close to those situations and that energy, or they were also a part of that, and they are part of the work and the healing that has to occur. So at this time, if, you know, expanding yourself expanding your thoughts, because when I think of Mercury, I think of communication, our thought processes, as I said a few minutes ago, travel, adventures. Those are all of that starts within the imagination. Before you book a flight, before you book a trip, before you sign up for school, it's all a thought. It's all a thought. It's all an idea. And that is all Mercury. Okay. And so maybe for you, you just find that it's conflicting with some of your relationships when it comes to maybe dating or your siblings. But the last card that came up was loneliness. And sometimes, despite being in a room full of people, we feel all alone. We feel completely alone. If you're feeling this energy right now, it may be time for you to venture out on your own. It doesn't mean that you have to tell everybody, give everybody the middle finger and move on with your life and cut all communications. But maybe this is an opportunity, and what's being triggered in you is pushing you to take that solitude and take that time to yourself that you really need so that you can grow. Gemini, that's what I have for you. Love you guys so much. We're going to move on to my Cancers. Cancers. What's up, Cancers? Mercury square Mars. What does that mean? What does the square mean? Let's talk about it. Square, as I explained in the beginning of the video, but I'm going to continue to explain it for each of the signs, just in case somebody skipped through, is tension. It's conflict. Think about two people squaring off, two people with very strong opinions trying to vote, both have their voices heard, both have their opinions received, right? And then when we think about conflicts and squares and confusion and just I even think about frazzled energy a little bit. When we think about those things, I want you to think a little bit deeper and start asking yourself, what is Spirit trying to show me? What is the message that Spirit is trying to give me? What is Spirit trying to shift in my life? What's needing to be shifted, reevaluated, cleaned up, or healed right now so that I can evolve? That is what these transits come to do. It comes to expose us to us. So if you're being exposed to yourself right now, I want you to consider the fact that Spirit is trying to show you something to help you elevate. See, a lot of times we like to give credit to feeling spiritually attacked, and I'm not downplaying spiritual attacks, but I want to give you another perspective on life happening and crises happening in our circle. When things happen and maybe things may be feeling a little chaotic for you right now, I want you to consider the fact that sometimes it's not that you're being spiritually attacked, but sometimes things are being shifted and shaken because maybe we've ignored Spirit's messages or we've ignored our intuition long enough, and now it's time for some things to be shaken, so we pay a little bit more attention. Or we're being elevated, and in order for us to elevate and move to the next level, some things have to be shaken up in our lives. So instead of looking at squares or conflicting energy or confusion that we may see, like let's find our peace, let's find our center, let's get grounded, because again, as I said earlier in the video, peace is about thoughts, actions, words, in order to accomplish a certain place, a certain space of tranquility, right? A certain place of comfort. And I want to encourage you guys to really start thinking about life a little bit differently. Start thinking about life from another perspective, because sometimes things are being shaken up in our lives so that we can experience and see some better things, so we can experience true joy. But sometimes we got to find our peace. We got to know how to find it, how to get grounded, how to get centered. And sometimes that could be really challenging. I know I'm not the only person that has experienced challenges in trying to get centered or trying to stay in the state of peace. Maybe I found my peace at a point, but staying there is the challenge when you have so many things going on around you, so much chaos and confusion, and you turn on the news or you look at social media and you start to really feel like the walls are closing in. You feel that sense of panic that everybody is operating and living in. And sometimes we just have to take a break. Sometimes we just have to take a step back so that we can find our center. And then there are moments where we're at work and we can't take a step back. We are literally in the game, and we just have to know how to respond. We have to tap in to that energy. And have a little patience with yourself during these processes. You know, as long as I've been on this spiritual journey, it does not get easier. You know, I just get better. I just get better. And I have learned how to deal better with conflict. There are still some things I need a lot of work on. Patience is one of them, with myself and with others. And I'm learning the more patience I have with myself, the more I'm able to have it for other people. And it's a beautiful thing. But, you know, crawl before you walk. Have a little bit of patience and give yourself some time to grow. Okay? So for my Cancers, this Mercury square Mars, this conflict between Mercury and Mars, our thoughts and our actions, or how we send and receive communication, how we analyze that communication, and our passion, which is Mars, our passion, our desire, our courage, our strength, our fight and fight or flight, right? The conflict between those energies, between even fathering energy, or masculine energy, leadership, those conflicts are occurring in your 8th house, the house of your investments, the house of sex and secrets and contracts, as well as the 2nd house for you. That's going to be the house of your material world, your finances, talent, your worthiness, security. It's going to be conflicting between those two things. So you may be experiencing a conflict with your finances and your investments. Like maybe your investments, and I talked about this earlier in the year on my Instagram in my 2021 reading. You know, I talked about how we needed to educate ourselves on our investments, and we needed to take more time to learn about investments. And the stock market, which I mainly participate in, has been like this, right? So I learned that, hey, to find my peace, to keep my center, some days I can't be watching the stocks because I get a little nauseous. You know what I'm saying? I get a little nauseous having invested all this money into this system. And yes, I've made some really good money, but there have been some days where I've been like, ooh, I should have sold them. I should have sold those shares in that stock. But you may be experiencing a little bit of conflict in that arena, or maybe a conflict within sex or secrets and your feelings of worthiness. Maybe your sexuality right now is impeding on your sense of worthiness. Maybe the things that you're finding yourself wanting to participate in are impeding on your feelings of worthiness. And don't think that because you have maybe had a sexual past. I know a lot of times as women, we have been shamed for our sexual past, whereas men don't get shamed as much. You know, men are encouraged to participate in sexual adventurousness or promiscuity, you know. So I want to encourage you not to attach your feelings of worthiness to materialistic things or ideas that you've picked up from indoctrinations or institutionalization. You know, I want you to find your feelings of worthiness within and really stop for a moment, be patient with yourself, and ask yourself, if I am feeling unworthy, what is this rooted in? Let's get into your cards. Your first card, financial and material changes. Financial and material changes. This may be a good time for you right now to consider like your savings and how much you're investing versus how much you're spending. Maybe reevaluate your budget and recalibrate things for yourself. You then have the next card of patience. Patience, taking time with yourself, understanding that we are all in this journey. We're all having our own individual experiences and trying to keep up with what we perceive somebody else to be doing, or what we perceive somebody else to have going on in their lives, steals our joy every single time. Comparison is the thief of joy. Whenever we try to look at ourselves and match ourselves up to what somebody else has going on, it has the ability to really start to make you feel bad about yourself, or feel like you're not doing enough, or you're not worthy, or you're not spending enough time here or there. I want you to tune in and feel and sense what spirit is trying to tell you. Don't mash that up with what somebody else has going on. The last card that came up for you guys was indecision. I use my intuition in all aspects of my life. I just said, tuning into that intuition and letting that be your guide. All right. I also want to point out that these two cards gave us double 5 energy. 5 is challenges. Okay. 5 is obstacles. We're in a 5-year. It's challenges, it's obstacles, but all of it is for your greater and higher good. And I want you to remember that. Remember, allow those challenges, allow that tension to show you and expose things to you that you need to be aware of. These are the moments where we get exposed to ourselves. And if we're honest with ourselves and we pay attention, we can get exactly what Spirit is trying to give us. We can get the information and the insight, and then we can grow. We can't grow until we acknowledge it and start to do the work, though. All right, Cancer. Love you guys. I'm going to move on to my Leos. Hey, Leos. We are talking about Mercury square Mars today and what that means. Okay. So what is a square? A square is it can be confusion, conflict, tension. Think of two energies squaring off, going head to head. They both have something that they want to say, and neither one of them is trying to pipe down. Okay, they both want to be heard. That is a square. That is what happens when a square energetically occurs in the cosmos. So from now until the end of March 30th, Mercury is square Mars. What does Mercury mean? I know you guys know from Mercury retrograde, but let's break it down. Mercury is communication. It is how we analyze things. It is how we receive and give information. It is how we learn. It is our energy in itself. When we go into a room and we feel the vibe, that is Mercury at work. It's communication. Okay. What's Mars? Mars is the battery in our back. Mars is passion. It is the fight and fight or flight. It is tension. It can be it's excitement, though. It is thirst, it's drive, it's willpower, it's our ability to go at it, to go out and get it. It's like when we, the newness of starting something, like maybe it's a new job that you're excited about, right? You might not be excited about it anymore, but let's talk about when you first were excited about it. A new career, a new job, a new start to something. That energy, that drive, you're getting up early, you're making sure that you're on time. You're making sure that, you pressed and laid, fried, dyed, blow dried, and laid to the side, as they used to say back in the day, right? Like making sure that you have it all together, that you are ready. That is Mars at work. Okay. So these two energies are going at it. They're having a little conflict. It's a little drama in the astrological streets. Okay. But let's talk about it. For my Leos, this is happening in your 7th and your 1st house. So what does that mean? The 7th house is about relating. It's about partners. It's about your bestie, your BFF, right? It's about marriage, balance. It's about relationships. It's also about the self-image, self-esteem, consciousness, and the physical body. So there may be some conflicting energy, right? Maybe some things that your partner has said to you about your image and how you're presenting yourself, maybe causing some conflicts within the relationship. Or maybe you and your friend, something that your friend has said, or maybe something you said to that person has caused some conflict as well. And I'm going to say more so about people directing energy towards you, because the 1st house is the house of the self. So it's how we perceive ourselves, how we view ourselves, and how we, what we look at in the mirror, how we feel about that, right? That's where all that energy is, our appearance. Okay. So, also the 7th house is about balance. So maybe some of these things are out of balance. Maybe how you see yourself and how you show up in these relationships is out of balance, and maybe you need to recalibrate some things. Let's talk about the cards that came up. Stand your ground was the first card that came up. So right now I'm saying, like, no, stand your ground, stand up for yourself, allow your throat chakra to be put into alignment and speak your truth. Okay. And that may cause some conflict, but right now you may need to stand your ground and speak your truth for the betterment of yourself. Okay. You also have conflict and defeat. Okay, and that energy came up as well. So it's like, stand your ground, conflict and defeat. Like that is some energy that I feel like is going together for someone in particular right now. Don't allow what other people say to you in their moments of frustration impede on how you see yourself. Don't let that impact how you see yourself in a negative way. Because a lot of times when people say things to us, they're projecting something else. Most of the time it's not even about us. So I want you to really take this time right now, Leo, because y'all are the ones that love to shine. Y'all love the light on y'all. Y'all love the attention. You love to have fun. Leos live within the sun, right? So for my Leos, I really want you guys to take a step back after you stand your ground and you speak your truth. There may be some feelings of conflict and defeat. There may be some feelings of guilt even that come up. Wow. Guilt says, I release any beliefs that no longer assist in my soul's growth. Wow. Spirit is speaking to someone very particular right now while you're watching this. And there's been some conflict and you have wondered whether or not you did the right thing. You may even have felt guilty about standing up and speaking your truth. And it's caused some conflict in your relationships. But I want you to know that you did the right thing. You did what you needed to do. And we have to be a friend, a lover, a partner to ourselves before we are that to anyone else. So remember to find your peace. Sometimes it takes a little bit more work, Leo, but find your peace and stay there. Stand your ground and stand your ground in your own peace. Okay? Be your own best friend first. Be your own partner first. And there will be no guilt in that. At first it feels a little weird. It feels a little weird to tell people no or to speak up for yourself when you haven't been. But you have to release that. Release the beliefs that no longer assist in your soul's growth, Leo. It's a beautiful message. I wish you well. Moving on to my Virgos. My Virgos. Hey, Virgos. We are talking about Mercury square Mars. What does that mean? What is a square? Okay, let's talk about it. A square is conflict. It can be a little bit of confusion, tension. A square it can be frustrating. It can be like a pressurized type energy. It can feel like a struggle even. But the way that I like to look at these type of energies is that Spirit is shaking things up, moving me into another direction, exposing me to me, or elevating me. And either way, like even with the challenges, they're coming about to help elevate you. Okay, because sometimes things have to be exposed, like the loose ends have to be tied up. Okay, the weak links in the chain have to be exposed in order to hold what we're supposed to be holding, right? You know, when it comes to your particular birth chart right now, this is affecting your 6th house and your 12th house. Okay, this is the house when it comes to your 6th house, the house of work, details, daily rituals, well-being. Your 12th house, it's your subconscious, it's forgiveness, it's baggage, it's healing, it's spiritual development and spiritual growth. And when we think about Mercury square Mars, when we think about a squaring energy in the cosmos, it is like a square off, right? It is like two energies wanting to be seen and heard and wanting to get their point across, and neither one is backing down. So when we think about Mars, we think about communication, we think about words, thoughts, how we analyze things, how we send and receive information. Even energy is very mercurial. All right, it's very communicative. When we walk into a room, we perceive energy. We can feel the vibe. Okay, if the vibe ain't right, you know, we're feeling uncomfortable. Or if the vibe is beautiful, we want to stay. You know, we're feeling comforted and we're feeling safe in these spaces, right? So then when we think about Mars, we think about action, we think about pleasure, passion, we think about strength, we think about fire, courage, the fight and fight or flight. So all of these things are Martian. That's Martian energy, right? It's Mars's energy. And also when we think about Mars's energy, we can also think about masculine energy. Okay, we can think about our fathers or leadership within our lives. Okay, and for you guys, leadership at work, maybe leadership in our spiritual practices. Maybe if you're part of a spiritual sect, or a religious group, this may be calling into question the leadership that you're under right now, or highlighting the leadership that you're under right now. So let's think. Sixth house is work, details, health, well-being, your daily rituals, your daily routine. And then we think about our 12th house, which is the subconscious. It's forgiveness, it's baggage, healing, spiritual development, or spiritual evolution. And your first card that came up is patience. It's patience. And this is a 5 energy, right? So this is talking about challenges. And in the midst of challenges, in the midst of conflict, sometimes we just have to pause and allow ourselves to take a deep breath and gather ourselves and find our peace. Find our center. Sometimes it takes a little more work to find our peace, but with peace and patience partnering together, it makes the journey a lot easier. It makes the journey a lot easier to navigate. And even though it might be a little stormy, it might be a little difficult, if we just slow down and slow the pace down, we can journey through safely. Okay? Accelerated motion. I just said slow down, and accelerated motion came up. So let's unpack this. All right. So when we are thinking, Virgo, about work, details, health, rituals, and well-being, it's like, be patient. Be patient with yourself and be patient with others. Practice patience in your communication. Instead of, sending that snappy email, that professional clap back, is saying, per my previous email, maybe re-explain things. Maybe break things down. Maybe that person isn't understanding what you're trying to say, right? And then also I want you to keep in mind that 12th house energy of subconscious, forgiveness, spiritual healing, as we begin to practice patience and we slow down for others, and we practice patience with ourselves, because the more I've learned that I practice patience with myself, I'm giving that to other people. I practice grace with myself, I can then have grace to give to others, because I'm pouring from my overflow, right? And then that accelerated motion happens once we reach the place of passing the test. Once we have, gone through these things and we've healed and we've allowed ourselves the time to grow and reflect, then things begin to move fast. And that 8, if we turn that 8 on the side, we see the infinity symbol. It all starts with our thoughts. It all starts with our thoughts. Once we get our mind right, we get our mind together, we get our thought process together, our actions will then align with the vibration of forward momentum that we seek. Forgiveness was your last card. I acknowledge that harboring resentment blocks the flow of love. I want to say something about forgiveness. Forgiveness is one of those things that you need to do in your own timing. We are often told, if you have been a part of any type of religion and this and that, forgiveness, you need to forgive and forget, turn the other cheek. And I really want to encourage you to practice forgiveness at your own pace. When you practice forgiveness at your own pace, it's authentic. When you do it based on a principle that you think you're supposed to live by, or something that you're supposed to do to attain spiritual holiness or purity, and you're not doing it from an authentic place, it doesn't work. It doesn't really work. We can say it on the outside, we can tell people this is what we believe, this is how we live, but when we don't really truly have that down within us, eventually our true colors show. You can only hide behind the mask for so long. After a while, you got to come up for some air. So practice forgiveness at your own pace. I hope that this message enlightened you, Virgo. I hope that you have an amazing week. I'm going to move on to my Libras. So for my Libras, Mercury square Mars is occurring until March 30th, and I wanted to talk about it today. So what is a square? Let me break that down real quick for you. A square is conflicting energy, it's tension, it is conflict, it's like a face-off. When we think of squaring energy, think of a square off, like two energies, two big energies, strong energies, two strong, loud, boisterous voices that both want to be heard. Neither one of them is piping down. Both of them want to be heard, and now they're at a conflict. They're squaring off, right? The energy is conflicting, and how I like to look at conflicting energy is as an opportunity to grow, to evolve, to recalibrate some things, an opportunity for things to shift, an opportunity for things to be moved out of my life. That's how I look at tension. That's how I look at squares. That's how I look at just the challenges of life. Because squaring energy is very challenging. It could bring some challenges that can lead to crisis if we don't know how to navigate. I always remind people when I'm explaining this energy, is like swim with the current, not against it. When you learn how to swim with the current, it makes it a lot easier. You know, you tire out a lot less quickly than trying to swim against the tide. Okay, so for my Libras, this transit is happening in your 5th house and your 11th house. Is the house, your 5th house is the house of passion, the house of creativity, the house of pleasure, children, entertainment. And then when we think 11th house, is the house of your friendships, your groups, and your future. So we're thinking about Mercury square Mars. How is that impacting us? Like, let's break that down and unpack it a little bit. Mars being action, being movement, being, I feel like Mars and the 5th house kind of go hand in hand, you know, because if we think about it, like pleasure, creativity, passion, that is all very, very Martian energy, right? So that is conflicting within your friendship, maybe some of your friendships, or one of your friendships, or a group setting, or even future things it can be conflicting with. So when we look at how these two energies are conflicting with each other, you know, it may be that right now you are dealing with some tension or confusion, maybe with your children, between your children and being a part of certain groups. You know, not them being a part of groups necessarily, but maybe responsibilities that you have or desires that you have for certain things that you want to do with your children, and maybe there's a group that you're a part of that's just demanding more of you, or maybe the things that are going on within that group are conflicting with your ability to be there for your children in the way that you want. And our children, keep in mind, are not always our babies. I mean, definitely when we think about the housing system, yes, it is talking about our physical children, but also keep in mind that our creative ideas, our creations, are also our babies. So I want you to keep that in mind as well and look at it from that perspective. But these things may be conflicting, or maybe your friendship is kind of conflicting with your ability to do the things that you're passionately pursuing right now. So keep that in mind. You know, just because you have conflict within relationships does not mean that it doesn't mean that, you know, it's the end of the road or the end of the line for that situation. It may just be time to take a little bit of time apart, or practice better communication so that you can express to your friendships or the groups that you're a part of that, you know, this is what I need right now, and this is what allows me to feel at my best, to be my best self. Like, I have to prioritize my joy, my happiness, and my peace in order to be what you are asking me to be to you. Our first card for this is accelerated motion. And if we look at it sideways, it is the infinity symbol, right? This just came up for, I want to say, my Virgos. Just came up for my Virgos, right? And accelerated motion. So maybe things are moving so rapidly that you haven't really had time to catch your breath, or maybe things happen so fast. You ever have like a conversation or an argument with somebody, and then after that argument or after that conversation, you're like, dang, I should have said this, I wish I would have said that, or I should have said this when they said that. Excuse me. Accelerated motion. Sometimes things are moving so rapidly that we don't have time to catch our breath. So in that moment, if you feel like things are moving too fast, or if you feel like things are just progressing or just demanding too much of you right now, it's okay to say, I need a break. It's okay to say, I can't do this, but this is what I can do. Or no. Sometimes no is a simple, short, concise answer to how you really feel about something, or in that moment what you really need to do in order to prioritize yourself. You then have spiritual union. So maybe this energy is moving you out of this group to move you forward into a spiritual union. And this could be a romantic spiritual union, but it could also be a spiritual union based on a contract that you had with another soul to venture down and have certain experiences within this lifetime. So keep that in mind. Just because maybe you are feeling ostracized out of a group, or you're feeling like you're outgrowing a group or a friendship, does not mean that that's the end of the line for you. I know sometimes, having a breakup in a friendship or having conflict in a friendship can be so heavy, and it can be just as hard as having conflict within your romantic relationships. So I understand how that energy can feel, but this might be moving you out of something rapidly, and it might be happening so fast that you barely had time to think, because it's moving you into a spiritual union. Or maybe it's conflicting with that energy. You have to dig a little deeper for the answers to that. Freedom is the next card that comes up. It says, I possess the power and the free will to create my own happiness. If you aren't happy in the setup or the setting that you're currently in, you can always change things. Sometimes we make life a little bit more complicated than it should be, because we just don't exercise our power and ability to choose, our power of choice. We get to choose what comes next. We have the freedom to choose what it is that we want to do. Libra, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to my Scorpios. Hey Scorpios, we are talking about Mercury square Mars. So what does that mean? Let's talk about a square real quick. Squares are conflicting energy. Think of two energies squaring off, right? They both have something that they want to say. They both are strong personalities, and neither one of them is backing down. It can cause a little bit of conflict and tension, right? You ever been in a room with two very strong-minded people, two very strong personalities, two very dominating energies, and neither one of them wants to back down from a point that they're trying to make? That's what we're dealing with Mercury square Mars. So a square can bring about conflict and tension. It can bring about pressure, but it's also motivating, because when we are experiencing conflict, a lot of times we're motivated to change. Some of the most beautiful changes that have occurred in my life happened in moments of conflict, happened in moments of great pressure. What they say, pressure produces diamonds, right? So in those moments, if you really look at it as an opportunity for growth, or you look at it as spirit shifting things out of your life, out of your path, so you can accelerate and move forward, so you can spiritually grow, so that you can grow in your career. If you look at it as an opportunity and not an obstacle, you're going to float through the energy a lot easier. But we want to talk about how it's affecting us astrologically. This is affecting, for my Scorpios, I'm a Scorpio sun, so it's affecting our 4th house and our 10th house. So let's talk about the 4th house. The 4th house is our roots, our comfort, self-care. Okay, so maybe questions about self-care. When we think about Mercury, we're thinking about our thoughts, how we process things, how we analyze things, how we receive information, how we learn, how we give information as well, how we communicate. We also think about our energy, right? Our energy, our vision. Like, how we see the world, our perspective, right? So when we think about Mercury squaring Mars in our 4th house, the house of our comfort and self-care, and also affecting our career, our achievement and responsibilities, I'm feeling like for my Scorpios right now, you guys are potentially having some conflict within the areas of career and care. Like, how do those two things, how can we make those two things align? Because maybe right now your job is impeding on your ability to practice self-care or your comfort levels. Okay, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, a change in our comfort level can be signaling us for a greater change. It could be pushing us to a greater change, to achievement. Okay, and I feel like my Scorpios just need to take a little bit of time to themselves to really process what it is that we want right now. Okay, what brings us comfort in the areas of our career and our achievement. Like, are we in a place where our career is conflicting with how we care for ourselves? Are we pouring from an empty cup? Are we giving of something that we really don't have? Are we giving from a place of lack instead of a place of abundance? Like, those are important questions to ask, especially with career, because when I think of the 4th house, I also think of the root chakra, because it's literally your roots, right? Your roots, self-care, comfort. And when we think about career, you know, with respect to the root chakra, a lot of times we stay at these jobs, we stay in these places that we don't even like, that drain our energy, that make us miserable. Okay, we dreading Monday morning, we're dreading the first day of the week at work, because they're literally energy vampires everywhere. They're negative, there's no opportunity for growth, or we have hit the ceiling in the place that we are. And it's like, at the same time, we stay there because of the security that it brings, because of the finances, because of that root chakra energy, you know, our ability to take care of ourselves and our foundations, and what that feels like, what that means for us leaving a job that pays well but makes us miserable. That is 4th house energy to me. It's like, when I think of the fourth house, I think of the root chakra, because it's literally your root. That's your base, right? So the first card that comes up is solitude. In order to get the answer to what you're to do next, Scorpio, you need to take some time of solitude. That may look like a social media fast. It may look like getting up a little bit earlier so that you can get a little bit more time in prayer and meditation. It may look like just taking a break from your friendship groups, or take a break from, you know, going out and really staying in, and not just staying in the house, but going in, diving deep, asking yourself, what is it that you want? Figuring that out, because sometimes we stay in these places just because we haven't figured out what it is that we really want. It's like, okay, well, you don't like this job. What do you want to do? And the answer is, I don't know. I ask people that all the time when they talk to me about their careers. It's like, well, what do you want to do? I don't really know. I just know I hate it here. And that's a start. But now we need to dive deep and figure it out. Figure out what else is it that we want to do. The next card is the Destiny card. The Destiny card. And they come back to back. There's a 9 and a 10. So we had the Solitude card. So after the Solitude comes Destiny. After you take the time to get still and dive deep, figure out what it is that you want, ask Spirit for guidance, ask Spirit to put you in alignment with your assignment. After that, what is destined for you, what cannot be changed, what cannot be taken away from you, is destiny. It's destiny. It's yours. It was yours since the beginning of time. Your next card is Pride. I love myself and I see myself in everyone. Hold your head up. Sometimes we give pride a negative connotation. But again, going back to that Mercury energy, thinking highly of yourself. What words are you speaking to yourself? Not just how you send information, but how you receive it also from yourself. Not just how you receive it from other people, but how you get it from yourself. Okay? Take pride in who you are. Take pride in what you bring to the table. And accept nothing less than the best. I love you, Scorpios. I'm moving on to my Sagittariuses. Hey, Sagittariuses. All right, so we are talking Mercury square Mars. What does that mean? What is a square? A square is conflicting energy. It brings tension. It brings confusion. It can bring about a crisis. And before you say, oh my God, this sounds horrible, I want you to really look at this. I want you to look at this type of energy as an opportunity. Don't look at tension and conflict and, pressure as a negative thing. This is an opportunity. What's happening is either you are being shifted into something else. Things are being brought to your attention because they need to be recalibrated, reevaluated. Some things may need to be uprooted, or things are being moved out of your way so you can elevate and move forward on your path. It's an opportunity, and I want you to look at it as such. Don't look at the tension and the conflict and the idea of squares being painful and negative as such. If we swim with the tide instead of against it, it makes what we're doing a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier. So I want you guys to keep that in mind. For my Sagittariuses, this particular transit is affecting your 3rd house and your 9th house. So this is the 3rd house is the house of siblings. It's the house of social media. It's the house of research. It's the house of dating. Your 9th house is higher education. It's travel. It's risk. It's adventures. So let's see how this is impacting you. So when we think about breaking this energy down, when we think about Mercury squaring Mars, when we think about 3rd house energy, siblings or social media or research or dating, maybe what a lot of what's going on right now in the news or on social media is impeding on your ability to travel, or maybe your desire to travel, because maybe you've gotten a little fearful of safety and security. That's root chakra work, by the way. But if you are feeling like your desire to travel or to be adventurous is being impeded, maybe you need to take a break, first of all, from social media if you are starting to pick up all the anxiety that's being pushed on you. Okay, there is an agenda, so keep that in mind. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling stressed out, but you know that there is some travel that you want to do, or an adventure that you want to take, or a risk that you want to take. And risks aren't a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you are putting yourself in danger, but maybe you're wanting to go on this trip that you've been planning for some time. Take the proper precautions. Get in tune with spirit. Check with spirit and see, is this a good idea right now? It may be a great time for you to travel. It may be a great time for you to take a risk or jump, take a leap of faith. When I think of risk, I think of the Fool card on the tarot. And it's like, is he going to fall off the cliff, or is he going to fly off the cliff? And it's all about being in tune with yourself. It's all about being tapped in and knowing how to receive that guidance from spirit when it's being given to you. Because there are times when we are given the green light, and there are times when we're given the red light and we're told to sit still and stop. So I want you to check in with that energy. Also, it could be with relation to higher education. Maybe right now, the research that you've done on going back to school or taking a course is just not making sense to you. Ask for guidance. Ask for guidance right now. The first card that came up for you guys is hope. It's hope. And this is an 8 card. So when I think of the 8, I think of infinity, of the infinity symbol. When I think of the infinity symbol, I think of the magician card. And when I think of the magician card with the infinity symbol over his head, I think about Mercury, communication, receptivity, how we receive information, and how we receive spiritual information, spiritual insight. It all starts in our mind. It's all a mental thing. However, whatever we assign ourselves to within our minds, our body then follows. Okay, so whatever we commit to or we sign up for, we make an agreement for mentally, physically, we then follow. So keep that in mind. Also, your next card was authority. Authority. And when I think about authority, of course, Mars energy. So we're looking at Mercury and Mars energy right here. right here. And when we think about authority, we are thinking about who is in charge. And a lot of times we relinquish our power to other people. We give other people authority over how we think, how we speak, how we live, what we speak about, what we don't speak about. You know, there's so much censorship going on right now. I know you guys have seen the cases with the mass murder that happened in Atlanta with a white guy shooting all the Asians. So now media is telling black people that we need to be allies, or we need to speak up against violence, when we had nothing to do with this. Like, this is not, we don't have a dog in this fight right now, okay, right? But a lot of people are assigning themselves to that because they've given authority to other voices, to other people to speak for them, or to tell them how to speak, to think for them. So I want you to keep in mind that you may also be seeing within social media a conflict between how people are thinking and the rebellion against the authority of the voices that are trying to take precedence. Keep that in mind. The next card that came up is courage. Courage. Have the courage to speak out against the things that don't resonate with you. Have the courage to tap into that mercurial energy. And I love it because it's like Mercury and Mars, although they're squaring, if we get in alignment and we get in the flow, those energies can work together. They both have something very important to say. They both have something that is very imperative for us right now. But it's like they're both yelling at the top of our lungs. So if we take the time to tap in and hone in to the energy of Mercury, and then tap in and hone into the energy of Mars, it's speaking a message to us. They're still speaking a collective message to us. Have the courage to speak the truth. Have the courage to stand in truth. Have the courage to think for yourself. It's amazing that thinking for yourself is a courageous thing right now, but it really is, because to step out of that box, to step out of the group think, it takes courage right now, because it's not a popular thing to do. Everybody's kind of going with the wave when the wave is going this way, and going with the wave when the wave is going that way, and nobody's willing to stand their ground and stay where they are and say, what makes sense to me? What feels right to me? What has Spirit called me to say, to do, or to be in this moment? The Courage affirmation card says, I find the inner strength to face fear with confidence. This is a loaded message for my Sagittariuses. It really is a loaded message, because, you know, when I think also of hope, I think of a renewed energy, a refreshed energy. And when I think of authority, I think of power, of ability, of strength. So in this moment, the message could be as simple as a refreshing renewal energy coming your way after you address the things that Mercury and Mars are bringing up to you in the sectors of your siblings, social media, research, or dating, or even in the areas of higher education, travel, adventures, and risks for yourself. Once you address those things, take your own power back and have the courage, you're then going to experience the beauty that hope and the power that authority in your own life bring you. Sagittarius, I hope that message came full circle. I know we did a little bouncing. I'm going to move over to my Capricorns though. Have a beautiful day, Sag. Capricorn, we are talking about Mercury square Mars, okay? What does that mean? What is a square? Let's talk about it. A square is conflict. And before I go any further, I want to say that this energy is occurring until March 30th, okay? So this is from now, right now, until the end of March, okay? So what does that mean? What is a square? It's conflict, it's tension. Think of two loud, boisterous voices trying to get their point across at the same time, okay? There's going to be some conflict. Think two energies butting heads and literally squaring off. Okay, on this side we have Mercury, which is about communication. It is about our thoughts. It's how we analyze things. It's how we give and receive information, even how we give information to ourselves, like that internal conversation, communication, learning styles, learning processes, our vision. Those are all relative to Mercury. Okay, so keep that in mind, and that is figuratively and literally. Okay, when we think of astrology, we don't just think figuratively and we don't just think literally. We think about it in its full definition. Okay, so we have Mercury on this side, and then we have Mars on this side, and Mars is passion. It's the battery in our back. It's the fight and fight or flight. It is conflict. It's in itself. It's war. It's tension. It's our ability to go after what we desire. It's our drive, our willpower, our determination, our passion, creativity. That is all Mars. All Mars. It's masculine energy. It's our fathering energy. So these two energies right now are having a conflict. It's some drama in the cosmos streets. Okay, in these astrological streets, the girls are going in. Okay, so I want you to think about those things as we discuss what it means for you. So for my Capricorns, this is happening in your second house, the house of your material world, of your finances, of your talent, of your worthiness, of your security. It's all root chakra to me. Like when we think about finances, and we think about stability. When we think about security, we think about safety, comfort, stability. That's all root chakra. Okay. And then it's also happening in your 8th house, which is your investments, contracts, sex, secrets. So that's more like, that could be more of your sacral chakra if we're thinking about the chakra centers. And these two energies may be having some conflict. So maybe when it comes to your sense of worthiness and maybe some secrets that you have, maybe you're feeling guilty about some secrets that you've been carrying, and maybe it's time for you to work through that energy. If it's something that, for some reason now is popping up in your mind and it's attached to really challenging your feelings of worthiness, maybe now is the time for you to address those things and maybe practice a little forgiveness within yourself. It may even be something attached to finances versus investments. Maybe your finances and what you're investing is not necessarily matching right now. Maybe like your finances and what you've invested, like you're not really reaping the rewards of that. But I'm going to encourage you to be patient, and maybe it's time to go back to a drawing board or recalibrate some things. Whenever this tension arises or this conflict arises, it's an opportunity for us to really evaluate what the message behind it all is. If we're experiencing conflict and discomfort, it's trying to show us things. Those triggers are trying to expose certain things to us, and sometimes exposing us to us. So whenever we experience that conflict or those challenges, Spirit is trying to show us some things, expose some things to us, help us by challenging us so that we can grow, so that we're strong enough to handle the next level, because it's going to come with its own challenges. Some bigger challenges than what we experienced on level 10 are going to be present than what was on level 1. So we have to be prepared for that, and we have to be challenged. So that challenge is coming in to shape us, to get us in shape, to mold us, to help us review things and rethink about things and see what still fits and what's not fitting, what's just not going to be able to go with us right now, right? So in those moments, I want you, instead of looking at the conflict and the tension that these aspects and these planets can be bringing into our lives, I really want you to think about what the bigger message is. What is Spirit trying to tell you? What is Spirit trying to show you? What is Spirit trying to move out of your way? Sometimes when we ignore the messages, Spirit gets louder and louder. Things shake a little bit harder and harder, to let us know, like, yeah, this needs to be worked on. I experienced the storm that came through Texas, right? And one of the things that happened in my building, I live in an older condo, beautiful view, but the building could really, it's older, right? And what had been happening, because they're all individually owned, is like people were doing their own plumbing maintenance, and a lot of patchwork was being done. It wasn't really like, people weren't really doing the type of plumbing work over the years that really needed to be done. As a result, when the storm came through and everybody's pipes froze, a lot of people had pipes that bursted because their pipes were old. There was just patchy work done. It wasn't done right. And you didn't realize that. But it's like when the plumbing work had to be done before, you know, people were kind of skipping over the job, just barely doing enough to get by, being cheap with it. And now you have this storm that comes through and the pipes burst to say, hey, I tried to warn you when you had this issue, when you had this issue, when you had this issue, and you ignored all that. So now that the storm has come through, now you got a bigger mess to clean up. And that's sometimes how spirit has to get our attention, because we're not really in tune, or we're just ignoring the messages. The first card that comes up for you guys is rest and rejuvenation. Maybe instead of focusing so much on investing or so much on materialistic things, take a break. Give yourself a break. Practice a little patience with yourself. Sometimes we are so busy trying to keep up with what everybody else has going on that we do a disservice to ourselves and we burn ourselves out. And we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to live our own lives, because we're really trying to live the life of someone else. We're trying to catch up with what somebody else has going on. Comparison is the thief of joy. I want you to practice patience with yourself. When it comes to your finances, practice patience, practice discipline. And maybe it's time for you also to take a rest from some of the extracurricular activities that you've been taking part in. Maybe the first step on your path to financial freedom is getting on a better budget. So keep that in mind. Material harvest comes next. I love that it comes up with this second house, 8th house energy, 8th house being the house of investments and contracts, sex and secrets. This is definitely talking about finances for you guys. And it's material harvest. So maybe after taking a rest and taking a break and really recalibrating your finances, you'll experience more material harvest. You may have more to invest. Maybe you have a desire to invest and you're like, well, right now, I'm capped on my budget, but you getting Starbucks every morning on your way to work. You eating out every weekend, or you going to happy hour, or you eating out every day, and yeah, you might be eating off the dollar menu somewhere. You might be having just it's only $5 a day. But if you take that money and repurpose it, you'll have what you need to invest in yourself. And investments don't necessarily always have to be great big investments. Sometimes it's putting a little bit to the side. When I was working and I started investing in stocks, I would just take $50 a paycheck, direct deposit it. I didn't even see it in my bank account. Okay, it went directly over into my stock account. And at the time, I didn't have enough to buy a lot of stock. So what I did was I saw a couple stocks that I wanted, and I knew I wanted to buy them in larger amounts because that was how I was going to flip my money quicker. So I just waited. I practiced patience and discipline by allowing my direct deposit, no matter what my money looked like, to keep going into my trade account. And I let it keep going. So every month I was depositing $100, right? And for me, it was a sacrifice at that time. It was a sacrifice. $100 a month, $50 a paycheck. Like, that $50 was covering a bill, or almost covering a bill a lot of times. But I continued to stick to my plan. Once I got enough money, I started buying the stocks that I wanted in bulk. And it took me some time. I had to be patient with myself. I had to be disciplined and not reverting that direct deposit or not, taking that $50 out of that account. I just had to be disciplined and let that money accumulate over there. And once it accumulated to what I needed, I started flipping it. And I'm telling you, it's been doing cartwheels, somersaults, and flip-flops ever since. And it goes up and down. The market goes up and down. Investments go up and down. But material harvest was something that I definitely have seen due to just me being patient, taking the time, reverting the money that I was spending on getting coffee and sometimes eating out, for lunch at work. I started packing my lunch. I started making my own coffee. I started taking my own stuff to work that I needed and that I wanted. I was looking up recipes and jazzing up my own Starbucks drinks at the house. And I still do that now. I prefer my own stuff. I like a little Starbucks every now and then. But when I'm on a budget or I'm focused on something that I'm trying to achieve financially, I know where to cut and where to snip. Okay, y'all know, if y'all have been following me for any length of time, that I love Amazon. I'm always ordering stuff off Amazon, and there have been some things that recently I've been like, you know, I need to practice more community, doing more investments in my own community, shopping in my own community, because soon enough stores are going to be obsolete. Brick and mortar stores are going to be nearly obsolete. So I'm trying to do my part in keeping these businesses alive, you know, being that I'm shopping anyways. But I even have cut out my Amazon stuff when it's time to practice some financial discipline. So I want to encourage you guys. I know I've spent a little more time on my Capricorns, but you know, I'm giving y'all what y'all need right now. Understand that rest and rejuvenation, taking a break, taking an opportunity to pause, allowing your bank account to fill up, to get, you know, allowing that coffee money to get diverted, is going to produce material harvest for you later on. Make the tiny sacrifice in yourself right now. Also, you know, I want to encourage you guys not to, if the Mars and Mercury energy has anything to do with sex or sexuality for you, there could be some grief behind that. Right now you might experience some regret, or you know, just feelings of unworthiness, or feelings of just what's the word, it's right on the tip of my tongue, just feeling regretful, okay, about your decisions. Don't. The grief card did come up in this reading. I understand that losing something is an opportunity to appreciate it, and maybe that grief is tied. I really feel like strongly this is financial for a lot of my Capricorns. For most of my Capricorns that'll watch this is financial, so maybe that grief is tied to that. But I also know that there are some of my Capricorns that are struggling with some sexual conversations within their own heads, some thoughts about themselves and their sexuality or their sexual preferences or habits, and it might be tied to some conflict for you guys. But understand that losing something is an opportunity to appreciate it, and also losing something is an opportunity to gain something else. Okay, so even though you may feel like you're losing out on the pleasure, on just my coffee, that's the only thing I give myself, allow yourself to understand that losing coffee temporarily, you know, outside of your house in the drive-thru every morning, is just an opportunity, one, to appreciate when you do have it, to appreciate the abundance that you have, and also an opportunity to appreciate where you can put that and what you can get in return. Okay, Capricorn, thank you guys so much. I hope that message resonated with you. Definitely give this video a thumbs up and share it if it did. I'm moving over to my Aquariuses. We are wrapping things up. I know y'all have waited a while to get y'all message, and I'm here to give it to you. So we are talking about Mercury square Mars. What is a square? A square is conflict, tension. It is discomfort. It is confusion. Sometimes squares and transits bring confusion. A lot of times it is struggle. It can be demanding as well. So when we think about a square, I also want you to think about two energies squaring off. I was going to say things squaring off, but two energies squaring off. Okay, so we have on this side, we have Mercury, and Mercury is all about our communication. It's our thoughts. It's how we send and receive information. Not even just receiving information from other people, but how we receive it from ourselves as well. Mercury is also how we learn, our vision, figuratively and physically. Okay, it is our ideas. It is our awareness. That is all Mercury, right? And then you have Mars over here. Mars is passion, it's strength, it's the fire, it's the battery in our back, it's the fight and fight or flight. It is leadership, it's masculine energy, it's our fathers, it's pleasure. That is all Mars's energy. That's all Mars's energy. So these two energies are conflicting. They both have a message that they're trying to deliver, but they both are screaming at the top of their lungs. Just think of it like that. Or they're both having conflict and they're butting heads. They can't agree to disagree, right? So right now there is tension in the astrological streets. Okay, the girls are fighting, and with Mars and Mercury, this is affecting your first house and your seventh house. So the first house is the house of self-image, body image, our consciousness, our appearance, how we see ourselves, how we present ourselves to the world. That's first house energy. Then you have seventh house. Seventh house is relating, it's partners, it's our BFFs, it's marriage, it's balance, it's relationships. So there's some conflicting energy there, right? So maybe how we are viewing ourselves and how we're showing up in our relationships is not really aligning right now. Maybe there's some conflict, maybe some conflict in how we see ourselves and how we show up passionately in our relationships. I know a lot of times as a woman dealing with body image issues, that can be really difficult when you are not feeling beautiful. Okay, when you are not feeling desirable, it makes it difficult for your sex life. It can really impede because you may not be wanting to sexually express yourself or be with your partner because you don't want them looking, you don't want to feel like they're staring at your body and judging you in the way that you're judging yourself. So there can be some conflict there. Or maybe, there is some issues with self-image or the self or your consciousness and how you're showing up physically. And I would like to also say figuratively in your friendships. Okay. Or maybe, how you're seeing yourself is not balanced in those relationships. You're not really balanced in how you view yourself. Maybe you're just overly critical of yourself or overly critical of your body image, and you aren't really balancing that energy out for yourself. I hope that makes sense for you guys. But the first card that came up was recognition and reward. Recognition and reward. It is time for you to see yourself the way that the Creator sees you. Beautiful. And I started doing this recently. Okay, I'll be honest. Moment of transparency. During COVID, C19, during the panoramic, let me say that. During the panoramic, I experienced weight gain. For a number of reasons. Like, I started out real strong, working out. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you saw my stories. I was working out like every day, and I've always been a person that kind of pretty consistently worked out. But then, as the season started changing and started getting colder, I didn't really have a plan because we had stopped going to the gym because of the whole panoramic, right? So I didn't really have a plan on how to keep my fitness going, my fitness journey. And I was working on a book. Whenever I start working on my books, I tend to be all in until it's done. Like, I don't do a whole lot more when I'm writing my books. But I started gaining weight, and I started looking at myself in the mirror, and I could see this weight that I've gained, right? And it's like, lately I have been in a place where I've been reminding myself to just love and accept myself. Like, love and accept what you see and change what you can as you can. Like, practice more self-discipline, work out more, get back into your routine. So I have been doing that, and I've been feeling better about myself, but I had to start accepting myself and accepting my body and the changes that my body's been going through, but also doing something about it, right? Not just looking at myself, feeling disgusted or feeling disappointed in my choices and just being down on myself, but just saying, like, I have the opportunity to change this. I can change this anytime that I want, and I'm choosing to do that right now. So I just want to encourage you, recognition and reward. Once you recognize yourself as the beautiful being that you are, and you start loving on yourself and appreciating yourself, reward comes after that, because then your actions from there follow that energy that you're putting out, and the reward comes when you see the results from the work that you're actually doing. Okay, also work that you've been putting in on yourself, you're going to be rewarded for during this time period. You may experience a little bit of conflict within relationships, because maybe that recognition, or how you look at yourself and how you're holding your head a little bit differently. Your bop is a little bit different, okay? And maybe your partner or your friends think that it's something else, that you have some air of arrogance about yourself right now, but it's not that. It's just that you are feeling yourself and you're feeling better about yourself. Those self conversations, those inner conversations are changing, they're evolving, and they're becoming more beautiful, more loving. And so you're feeling that and you're embracing that energy, and maybe that's not translating well to the people around you. So I want to encourage you to just communicate those things during this time period, because it could cause a little bit of conflict. I also have the card of spiritual union for you guys. Spiritual union, just keep in mind that the connection, this connection is divine, and the connection starts with ourselves. We are our own, and I feel like this came up for another astrological group, the spiritual union, but also relative to their 7th house being affected as well. But understand that you have to be your own best friend. You have to be your own lover. You have to be your own confidant first. You are that to yourself. The relationship with the self is the most important relationship that you'll ever have in this existence. So remember that spiritual union begins with you. That is you loving you. It's a balance of divine masculine and feminine energy. Okay? Don't think of it just as relationship stuff. This is a balance. Again, 7th house is about balance. Balancing out that masculine and feminine energy. And then comes the recognition and reward. Or the recognition and reward helps you and assists you with balancing out that energy, because you get a new perspective. Health. I was just talking about my health and the weight gain and all that I've been doing and the changes I'm making now to be the change I want to see in my physical body. Okay? Health. The affirmation card says, I will honor the physical vessel that enshrines my soul. Again, the relationship with yourself is the most important one you'll have in this existence. Thank you, Aquarius. If you enjoyed this, if this message resonated, please share it, like it, give it a thumbs up, share it with somebody that you know. And I'm moving on over to my Pisces. Pisces, what's up, Pisces? You guys are the last in the group. All right, if you guys have watched this entire video, thank you so much. I appreciate you for being here, for listening. But let's talk about Mercury square Mars. So if you've been watching the whole video, you can probably say it verbatim with me, right? What is a square? A square is conflict, it's tension, it's obstacles, okay? It's demands, it is stress, it's struggle, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity for things to be shifted around you, for things to move, for you to evolve, for you to grow, for change to occur. It's an opportunity for you to see yourself. Okay, it's an opportunity for you to recalibrate some things. Spirit comes with a message. It's always an opportunity. It might not feel like it at first, but if we stay tuned long enough, we'll realize, dang, this played a lot differently than I thought it would. It's an opportunity for you to evaluate some things and evaluate yourself, your behaviors, your ideas, your thought patterns. All right, and the two energies that are squaring right now until March 30th at the end of the month is Mercury and Mars. So when we think of a square, think of two energies squaring off. Okay, conflict, tension, they're butting heads, they're not agreeing right now. Mercury is coming through as the communication, our words, our thoughts, our vision, how we send and receive information, how we learn, how we analyze things, just our energy in itself. That is all Mercury. Okay, and then when we think about Mars, we're thinking about fiery energy, passion, conflict, thinking about the fight and fight or flight, thinking about our willpower, masculine energy, our fathers, leadership, authority. Those are all Martian energies. Okay, so those two energies are in conflict. Okay, the girls are fighting in the astrological streets, and that is what's going on. So for my Pisces, this is affecting your 12th house, which is the house of your subconscious. It's the house of baggage. It's the house of spiritual growth and development. It's the house also of forgiveness and healing. Okay. And it is affecting your 6th house, which is the house of work, your daily routine, details, rituals, all of that good stuff. That is all 6th house energy. So when we think of these two energies conflicting at this time, you may be experiencing some growth or development spiritually that is going to be directly tied to your daily routines. Okay, if you want to grow spiritually, you're going to have to invest in yourself spiritually. Okay, and a card came up, forgiveness, for another group earlier today, and I encourage that group to practice forgiveness at their own pace. And I encourage you to practice forgiveness at your own pace. Don't feel like you are obligated to forgive, but do understand that forgiving, true, authentic forgiveness, shifts and lifts weight off of you. So keep that in mind. But the subconscious, baggage, spiritual growth is all 12th house energy. And then 6th house, again, work, details, your daily rituals. The first card that came up for you guys was the third eye chakra. And I love that this came up relative to the subconscious, because right after it came the crown chakra card. And this deck is not just, as you guys can see, it's not just chakra cards. So your third eye chakra came up, and then your crown chakra. In order for you to be able to see things clearly, you're going to have to get to a place where you are communicating more with spirit, where you have your ancestor altar in place, where you're practicing daily rituals of your spiritual practice, okay, in order to decalcify that pineal gland, opening that third eye. So, some people feel conflicted about it. I feel like when it is time for your vision to be open, it will open naturally. Don't try to force it. Don't try to, do all these things, do all these rituals to open your third eye. Because if your third eye, which is just your spiritual sight, is not open, if you're not spiritually consciously aware, you don't have an understanding of what is going on around you, the energies, then you need to take some time in meditating, praying, and spending time with your ancestors. That is how you're going to evolve spiritually, and naturally your spiritual vision will begin to open. When I first started reading tarot cards, I knew that I had a gift of I didn't know what to call it, okay? I didn't know that it was clairsentience. I didn't know it was clairaudience. I didn't know it was claircognizance, okay? I didn't know those things. I just knew that I knew things. And for some reason, I was right. When I would go to people and tell them things, they were like, how do you know that? And I didn't want to call it psychic at that time, because psychic has such a negative connotation. I was growing up in the church, and it just didn't feel right at that time. I didn't have an understanding or understanding of what that really meant. But as I took the time to start meditating, educating myself, I let spirit know, like, I'm here as a servant. And my vision, my spiritual vision, became stronger and stronger, because at that time, when I knew that I knew things, it was very random. It wasn't like I could tap into the energy like I can now. That took work. And a lot of people want the progress, they want the results without doing the work. They want the prize without running the marathon. And you have to do both. Okay, so third eye chakra comes up, but then immediately after, for you guys, the crown chakra comes. This is talking about spiritual sight and spiritual connection. Our crown chakra is where we receive that higher consciousness, where we receive those downloads from spirit. And sometimes when that crown chakra is not in alignment, when that energy center is not aligned, we are receiving mixed messages. We're not clear. We don't know what is our intuition. We don't know what's the message from spirit. We don't know if that's just our thoughts, or we can't differentiate between our thoughts and spirit's messages, or just random things, nothing's random, but we think that things are just random and we're not sure if we're really receiving a divine message. So you have to get clear, and in order to do that, it's time for you to examine your daily rituals. There is no spiritual growth without getting into some routine or some ritual of practice. It's just like working out. It's just like, I talked to Aquariuses about images, self-body image issues that I have been dealing with, and I can't expect to see more results in how I view myself if I'm not willing to do the work on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, a mental level, and a physical level. Okay, so it's going to be the same with you guys. Mars square Mercury is saying, like, your routines and your rituals are not aligning with what either you're presenting yourself to be as a spiritual student, as a spiritual healer or teacher, maybe even, versus what you're actually doing. So make sure that those two things are in alignment. It's easier to swim with the current than to try to swim against it. Okay. The last thing is guilt. I release any beliefs that no longer assist in my soul's growth. Let go of any guilt that may be tied to some of the things that you may find yourself being triggered with between now and the end of the month. Let go of the guilt. The guilt is not going to serve you. Okay? Practice forgiveness, practice patience, understanding, and give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. So often we give these things to other people, but we withhold them from ourselves. I encourage you guys to practice a little bit more grace and release the guilt. Release the guilt. You didn't know what you didn't know. We are all going to make mistakes. Let's just live better and do better. Thank you, Pisces, for tuning in. If this message resonated or affected you and touched you in any way, please definitely give this video a thumbs up. Share it with at least one person that you know. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, of course. Thank you guys so much, especially for those of you that watched the entire thing and didn't skip around. And if you did, it's cool. I don't mind. But thank you guys so much. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out my website. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one and getting a personal reading or personal divination or spiritual advisory sessions, I can't find my words right now. Definitely visit my website, thespiritualbestie.com. Check out my podcast, Real Talk with the Spiritual Bestie, and be sure to join my mailing list by going to my website, thespiritualbestie.com. I love you guys. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at spiritualbestie, and until next time, peace.